So the first Venom film was just an atrocity for film. It had very stilted, honestly bad acting, mostly bad dialogue. The CGI was just all over the place. Sometimes it was okay at best. Other times it was just god awful. Very, very one note, very one dimensional villain. The first Venom was just an abomination of film. I would say that the first Venom for me would have been. It used to be a 6 when I first watched it in theaters, but over the years, and I just rewatched it a couple weeks ago, it's more like a 2, maybe up to a 4, maybe. I would say between 2 to 4 for my rating out of 10. The new sequel to Venom, Venom Let There Be Carnage, which is funny story behind the production of it. The director is Andy Serkis. He is an actor, but he also, for the most part, does the motion capturing for CGI glory films like Lord of the Rings and basically any big budget, high mainstream film that has a bunch of CGI effects in it. Usually Andy Serkis is pulled in to do the motion capture. So that's kind of a neat thing to know about Venom Let There Be Carnage, is that Andy Serkis, the motion capture professional, is the director. With that being said, Venom Let There Be Carnage, I will get this out of the way at the beginning. It is way better. It is far superior to the first film, which is unusual for a sequel. Usually sequels suck. But this sequel is leagues better than the first one. And I mean, the first Venom film didn't really set a high bar to begin with, but Let There Be Carnage is definitely a more entertaining film. Hands down as a whole. The number one thing I will say about Venom Let There Be Carnage is that the CGI and just the visual effects overall, they're done so much better. They're made, it looks just better as a whole. And when Venom Let There Be Carnage focuses on Eddie Brock, Venom, Cletus, and Carnage, it's actually an intriguing and entertaining story. And the action sequences are actually made well. Outside of all of those good things, it's still pretty shitty filmmaking. The pacing is the absolute worst part. The first 10-15 minutes, 100% could have been fleshed out to at least 30 minutes. And I just feel like they wrote it and directed it and edited it. Not so much that they took things out, it's just that they were just trying to get through and make a film that's a runtime of an hour and a half, because this is under an hour and a half for the runtime. And honestly, this film, if this film were 2 hours long, just 2 hours, not 2.5 hours, if Venom Let There Be Carnage would have been stretched to a 2-hour film, excluding the credits, actually just flesh out the scenes, this film would have actually been a really good film. But Venom Let There Be Carnage is Carnage of filmmaking, and for the bad. Okay, they have a good premise. The story and the lore and the mythos of Venom Let There Be Carnage, they actually dive deep into Cletus Cassidy's character, and they also continue Eddie Brock and Venom's storyline, and they definitely sidetrack and put on the back burner some other main characters from the first film, and that's a good thing, because when Venom Let There Be Carnage focuses on Venom and Carnage, Eddie Brock, Cletus Cassidy, it works 100%. Whenever you add in all of the extra elements, it starts to just unravel, it starts to just not work at all. So, the visuals, they look excellent. I will say the acting is a lot better than the first one. Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy, he's not constantly sweating, which I understand in the first one he was adapting to the symbiote inside of him, but in the first Venom film, Tom Hardy just acted like a sweaty, riddled mess where he just kind of stuttered the whole way through. In this film, his acting is done much better. And I'm not saying anything bad about his acting. I actually think Tom Hardy is a really good actor. I think that the direction they gave him in the first film is far inferior to that of this film. Woody Harrelson does an admirable job as Carnage. Carnage himself is a spectacle of a villain. Venom, alongside Eddie Brock, they just work a lot better in this film than the first film. And I think that has to do mainly in part to the better writing. They don't just have stupid dialogue sequences. I never thought I'd say that for a film, but yeah, in the first Venom film, they had some dialogue in it where you could tell it was just made for the trailer. And then when you watch the film and they said those lines, you were just like, well, that's really stupid and immature to say. It worked in the trailer, but it didn't work in the full length of the first film. Venom Let There Be Carnage, the dialogue is better written. And every character in this film has their own part in it, including Dan, Anne's new and current boyfriend. And in the first film, Dan was there as basically the doctor. In this film, he's back just like Eddie's ex-girlfriend. And I will say Dan's character did have a bit more to do in the first film than in this one. In this one, he was more of just the one-off joke throughout the whole film. So overall for me, Venom Let There Be Carnage is leagues better than the first film, but it's not absolutely excellent. It's definitely not excellently crafted. A lot of pacing issues. I won't say that it's because of the editing this time. I think it's just because they wrote a short film and they wanted to keep it short. And so that's what they got, a short film. I honestly think this would have benefited from a 2-hour runtime. Just don't add anything in. Just flesh out scenes. That way they don't feel forced. Because the entire intro, while it's a riveting and ambiguous intro, it's just, there's not much to it. You like what you get, but there's definitely more that could have been done. Like I said, everything in this film could have been fleshed out. And also, as for the editing, there are some sequences where people are just sitting and talking, and the camera shots just keep going back and forth like it's an action sequence, and that's not good filmmaking. Okay, it's one thing to do that in action sequences. I still disagree with that kind of filmmaking. I'm more of a one-shot person. But in action sequences, it's acceptable. I always use Taken 3 as the best prime example for bad camera editing. Okay, in Taken 3, there was literally a diner scene where they're sitting down eating peas or whatever it was, and there was just like 50 different camera takes just going back and forth talking, and that shouldn't be in a film. Especially in a talking scene. In Venom Let There Be Carnage, they do that in the action sequences. I would have appreciated, and I think this film would have benefited a lot more from a one-shot kind of filmmaking in dialogue sequences. So overall for me, stretch out Venom Let There Be Carnage, fix up some of the editing, some of the camera work, and I believe that it would have been an excellent film, almost comparable to even the Dark Knight trilogy if they actually put their heart into the making of the film. But it's not a terrible film. It just has a lot of making problems. So overall for me, Venom Let There Be Carnage is an entertaining 6 out of 10. Thank you.